What's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL Dynasty, located here exclusively on College Football Revamp. We find ourselves here in the second week of the regular season, here in year number 2, and we already are going to see some heart-wrenching, some massive action that could have some postseason implications when we look back at it at the end of the regular season. We have multiple top 25 matchups in this particular episode that I am looking forward to, including College Game Day going to Athens, Georgia. And of course, we have a bunch of other games which you guys will have the pleasure of being able to sit back and watch personally. 16 nationally televised games coming in your direction. I am really excited about this episode, and I hope you guys are excited for it as well. If you are, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, hit that subscribe button as well if you do have to be brand new to the channel, if you want to help grow this community that we got going on over here. And without any further of a beat, let's go ahead and jump right into the action. Week number 2 action within season number 2 of the NCSL is officially coming in your direction. So we'll get things started here with a Thursday night special of some ACC action out in the Carolinas. We got Virginia, who's looking for their first win of the season. They are taking on South Carolina. Virginia losing a heartbreaker last week after losing just by a field goal, last second field goal, by the way, to Colorado. But they will take the early lead against South Carolina. But those game clocks are going to respond in the second quarter as they will go ahead and take that very first lead of the game. We could be in for a close game all game long as Virginia fires over the middle and finds Burpatoon Underwood for a 16-yard strike as Virginia Cavaliers take the lead, and they'll look to hold on to this lead as we go into halftime as Davis, he's going to try a Hail Mary, and he actually did have the numbers down the field, but shout out to that Virginia defensive back. He's able to make the play down the field. Lance Douglas is going to make sure the Cavaliers have a 4-point lead going into that second half of action, and they still hold on to the lead going into the final quarter, but with 6:25 left to go, we see South Carolina run the ball into the end zone. They'll actually try the 2-point conversion as well, which was dropped, unfortunately, but South Carolina does just enough to get to 2-0 on the year. A lot of yards in this game for both teams, but just couldn't put the ball in the end zone. However, we have a bunch of other games going off, including 3 top 25 games, all happening at the same time. But before we check in on either of those games, we'll check in on Auburn taking on San Jose State. The Auburn Tigers getting into the top 25 after a big win against LSU. And they're on the road taking on the San Jose State squad. And they already are off to a strong start. Already up 14-0. And we'll get to extend that lead further as Alexander tries to throw to the right-hand side. He's intercepted. And now it's San Jose State going the other way. He gets the blocks that he's looking for. And he is going to be gone like a girl in a country song. Touchdown, Spartans. San Jose State cuts it to just a 1-point game. Wow, what a turn of events, as San Jose State actually does miss the extra point somehow. So you do hate to see that, but you know, San Jose State, they got punched in the mouth to start this game. That was very evidently clear, but you know, they're hanging in there. They are hanging in there against the Auburn Tigers. However, Auburn is looking to put this game away as Bo Cantrell, he's been going off in this one, 130 yards and a touchdown, as Alexander tries to throw to the right-hand side, but is going to be intercepted yet again. This might be going the other way as well. Are we going to see 2 pick sixes in the same game from San Jose State? And we do. The Spartans are a 2-point conversion away from tying this game. trying to scramble. It's the quarterback, but Tony Montgomery gets absolutely lit up like a Christmas tree. And how about this? San Jose State later on does get a kickoff return for a touchdown, so they're actually up by 1. However, all that Auburn needs is a field goal, and they already are in San Jose State territory. Alexander throws to the right-hand side, gets the Bo Cantrell yet again. He's been a reliable set of hands for this experienced quarterback. One more first down could get him into field goal range as Alexander's, he's got time, throws over the middle and is picked off again. That is the third interception that Derek Alexander has thrown today. That's the last one that he throws at all in this game. And San Jose State, they pull the stutter as they take down the Auburn Tigers 28-27. So now we find ourselves going in to a big-time matchup. Michigan, one of the best teams in the country, taking on Oregon. A top 10 matchup here. Great early non-conference action here for sure. But Michigan is going to be the team that strikes first blood as number 4 team in the country. It took them a while for either team to find a groove on offense, but Michigan was 7:26 left to play. In that second quarter, they do score first eventually, but the FCS transfer, that is none other than Montrell Hawkins. Well, he's going to find David Miller in the back of the end zone, and Oregon will answer back as they will tie this game up right before we do go into halftime. So, a little bit of a defensive struggle here for sure, as Michigan, they've moved the ball quite a bit, but they've had to settle for quite a few field goals in this game. They do have a 9-point lead though, but Oregon looking for the first touchdown since early in the second quarter. He might be taking it all the way, but Marcus Myers gets chopped down at the 10-yard line. A much needed kick return as this Michigan defense has been absolutely stout. We'll see if Oregon can punch it in as they hand it off to Jeff Brady, and Brady does the rest of the work. We are now looking at a 1-possession game once again as Oregon pulls within 2 with a few minutes left to play in the third quarter. Cutting to the fourth, Michigan still has a 19-14 lead as Michigan is going to try to pitch the ball back. What are we doing? Oregon is going to recover, and now it's a foot race. What a mistake! And that's going to give Oregon the lead. Here in the fourth quarter, Mike McDaniel is going to get a scoop and score. Are you serious right now? What was that quarterback even doing? Nobody was even there to pitch the ball to in the first place. That is insane. And Oregon will go for the 2-point conversion as Montrell Hawkins drops back. He faces the heat and is trying to get out of there, but he does get dragged down in the backfield. So the 2-point conversion is not successful. Oregon still only has a 1-point lead. And Michigan has the ball in their hands yet again. That's Lawrence Arnold, who had that fumble earlier in the quarter. Well, he runs the ball down the sideline. Gets him set up in the red zone where he finds Jeff Griffin in the end zone. Michigan retakes the lead with 6:34 left to play. It'll be interesting to see if they go for that 2-point conversion, and they will. 2-point conversion attempt to make it a 7-point game. Arnold looking around, but the 3-man rush that Oregon sent, it actually works. And not only that, Montrell Hawkins is able to march him down the field. 2 minutes left to play. He's going to scramble for the end zone, and he gets it. Montrell Hawkins is going to punch it in the end zone for the Oregon Ducks. And they take the lead yet again. Hawkins just a determined runner. And they'll go for 2 as well. They were unsuccessful in their last 2-point conversion, but they will get this one though, as John Nielsen is going to make the catch. And Oregon is going to hang on and win. The Oregon Ducks win 28-25, sending a massive message that they are ready to compete with just about anybody in the college football world. So that wasn't the only top 25 matchup that we have going on in this episode, let alone in this particular box. Plenty of top 25 games happening at the same time LSU and South Alabama being one of those teams, as South Alabama does enter the top 25 after they open the season up with a win, while LSU, they are still number 12 in the country, even though they did lose to Arkansas. LSU will look to avoid the 0-2 start here. As here we are with 2 minutes left in the first quarter. LSU gonna pitch it out to the outside, and he is going to carry it into the end zone. That's Sean Callahan with a 33-yard score. I mean, here's a guy. How about this quarterback staying poised the entire time? Waited until the last possible moment to get that ball to his tailback, as LSU trying to pull away early on, but seeing some mistakes here in the red zone here, though, as throwing an interception inside the 5-yard line. You always hate to see that, because in every other metric besides the scoreboard, LSU has been dominating, but right now it's only been a 7-point lead to show for it. But Chris Norman's going to make a huge catch down the sideline. It's going to get him inside the 10-yard line. Less than 2 minutes left to play as they try to go with a play action. Throws over the middle, but it's intercepted again. Wow, another interception in the red zone. What are we doing? What are we actually doing? As South Alabama tries to tie this game, they haven't done anything on offense, and that's probably not the first offensive highlight that South Alabama wanted. As not only is that going to be an interception, but Brad Skinner is going to take it all the way for a pick six of his own. LSU is going to score themselves, and they are going to be up 14-0 here in this second quarter of action. But we'll go ahead and cut to the fourth quarter, because nothing much really happens after that. But we do see South Alabama finally get on the scoreboard with less than 5 minutes left to play. Michael Johnson, you know, someone that's been efficient, 13 for 15, but just hasn't turned it into points. Well, South Alabama finally gets on the board, but going to need a couple stops from their defense, though, if they want to turn around and win this game. But how about this run right through the heart of the South Bama defense? And he is going to take it all the way. A 75-yard touchdown run for Sean Callahan. That's his second score of the game. How about that, Sean Callahan? I mean, look at the blocking that was created from this run. That is just perfect blocking, and then just literally splits the safeties. The safeties could not react fast enough, and unfortunately it showed there. So South Alabama, I'm sure, is going to try to go fast to try to make up this deficit as much as possible. 17-point game, but I don't think that's what they're going to be looking for. Yet another interception that's going to be taken down inside the 20-yard line. I mean, Sean Thomas, he was reading it like a novel. South Alabama was looking for that cutback cheese, and it works poorly as Damian Morton finds the end zone for the LSU Tigers. Quay Rogers finally throws a ball in the end zone that goes to an LSU Tiger. As the Tigers do pull away, they win pretty convincingly in this one, in this top 25 matchup, winning 31-7. The LSU Tigers do get their first win in the season, while South Alabama, well, this will be their very first time that they will be experiencing that loss. They will fall to 1-1 and might fall out of the top 25 as well, depending on what happens around the country. But now we have yet another top 25 matchup for you guys here, as Miami is taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. And these two teams, they did go up against each other in the SEC Championship last season. Georgia, the champions of the Peach Division, or at least the defending champions. Well, they'll be taking on the defending champs, not only defending champs of the Sunshine Division, but also your defending national champions are the Miami Hurricanes. So let's go ahead and get right to work. Halfway through the first quarter, we still have no score as we get a big-time run down the sideline. Does he have the blocks? He does! Adam Williams with a 34-yard touchdown, and Georgia will draw first blood against the Miami Hurricanes. How about this big time run here for Adam Williams, just following his blocks, and also breaking a couple of tackles as well, as this first quarter was a first quarter that Georgia thoroughly dominated, as Zach Grigsby one-on-one on the outside. He said, "Get away from my lemonade stand." And Georgia scores another touchdown. They're winning this first quarter in a big way. Already up 14-0. But there's still plenty of football left. Less than 5 seconds left in the first quarter. Likely the last play of the first quarter. And Casey Carter puts the ball on the ground. It's recovered by Georgia. Oh man, if the defending national champions if they're not careful, they could be ran off the field here, because all the ingredients are set up for that particular fashion. As I look over the middle of the field, and finally a positive play for Miami. Oh, they really needed that one. They really needed that play. Tony Ferguson comes up with the interception. They have a long drive after that before they finally ask the fullback David Smith to run the ball in the end zone for them. So despite all the good things happening on Georgia's side, they're still in this game. They're only down by 13. We'll see if they can make things interesting in the third quarter, though, and that's why that's the thumbnail. Chris Thompson just mossed that defender, sets Miami up with a red zone opportunity, and Harvey Hubbard will run the ball in the end zone. Touchdown, Hurricanes. It is back to just 6-point game before Georgia does add a field goal later on. But here we are in the fourth quarter, though, and this Miami team is certainly far from giving up. Casey Carter throws his first touchdown pass of the afternoon, as he was waiting patiently for his receiver to break out of that press coverage. Did finally win there, and cuts it down to just a field goal game, as we got a little bit of a glitch here, as still none of the quarterbacks touch him, and we finally see a throw downfield, but I'm not sure who that was supposed to go to, but I'm sure it's not supposed to go to a guy that's wearing a Miami jersey. Tony Ferguson having a big-time game in this one. 2 interceptions in this game. He's been a walking nightmare for Andre Bryant. And Miami now has the chance to take the lead, but they're going to have to go for it here on 4th down. Carter throws over the middle of the field. He's got a receiver. First down, and more importantly, touchdown for the Hurricanes, as Ray Berry just pierces the heart of the defense. Miami now has the lead, and Georgia will look to respond back. Bryant drops back, throws to the right-hand side. He's got a receiver himself down the sideline. He's already across the 30, breaks the tackle, and it's finally brought down inside the 15-yard line. Zach Grigsby with the play of the day. Almost 60 yards on one catch. And now 1st and 10 for a red zone opportunity. And it's Zach Grigsby again, who now has over 100 yards receiving in this ball game. But more importantly, Georgia has the lead again. This has been an absolutely exciting fourth quarter of action. 5 minutes left in the game, though. Carter, he's going to go ahead and run the option. Carter pitches it out to the left-hand side. He's got some space to out on the perimeter, and Mark Edwards with a good run. As Miami only needs a field goal, but I'm sure they're looking for more than just a field goal as they run the ball with Jared McBride in the end zone. Touchdown, Hurricanes. And Miami extends the lead. Hurricanes up by 4. And can Georgia do it again? They had a touchdown the last drive. Can they make it 2 possessions in a row? Oh man, this could be a big play down the sideline. Nobody is in front of him. And Reggie Peterson, the James Madison transfer, he's going to score. And Georgia has the lead again with less than 4 minutes left to play. I mean, how about this run by Reggie Peterson after the catch? Breaks a couple of tackles, gets away from more defenders. And that boy was gone like a girl in a country song. And yeah, man, that fourth quarter was absolutely exciting. But Georgia will prevail. They will prevail against the Miami Hurricanes, winning 37-34 in this one. A game that we won't forget anytime soon. Could be a rematch in the SEC Championships. We have some more action coming up here later on in this episode. Not as high profile of games that we did witness earlier, but still nationally televised games as, Florida seeks to go 2-0. They had a disappointing season number 1. They will be on the road here down in Tampa, Florida to take on the South Florida Bulls. But South Florida, they are not bull crapping around as Derek Brooks gets the scoring started here in this first non-top 25 game that we've had in a long time. But even then, Florida has really came out and dominated the rest of this first half. One that culminates in them taking a 24-7 lead into halftime. So we'll see if USF can find the magic on the ground yet again, and they do with Brooks. That's going to be the second rushing touchdown for Brooks today. Helps the Bulls get to within just a field goal. So Florida would love to score on this particular drive so that they can go ahead and put this game away once and for all. We'll see if they can do just that with a first and goal opportunity. Dropping back, looks to the left-hand side and throws a dot to Spencer Willis. And that is going to do it. Florida is actually going to go 2-0, beating Southern Florida 31-21 in this one. Meanwhile, across the country, we go up to the Midwest where Wisconsin is going to be hosting the Monarchs of Old Dominion. Wisconsin, a team that we did see in the college football playoff in year number 1. They did lose in the quarterfinal to, I believe it was UCLA, if I'm not mistaken. That was the number 1 seed. So we'll see if Wisconsin can repeat that success this year or if they'll have a returning back to earth. But Old Dominion, they have a smart young coordinator in Sam Cash. Sam Cash, in the middle of his first year at the FBS level, is looking for his first score on national television. And it's going to happen courtesy of a Nick Mason touchdown. And the Monarchs will cut it to just a 7-point lead after the field goal. Later on in the game, Monarchs still keeping it close, just a 4-point game as Mason looking for a second score and is going to get it. How about the blocking here on the outside? That is just wonderful execution. And the Monarchs now have the lead and looking to expand on that lead as I thought Marshall Gardner could have gotten it in the end zone there. Close, but no cigar, though. They'll have to punch it into the end zone the old-fashioned way, and they will with Nick Mason, who continues his strong performance. Yet another touchdown on the ground. And will it be enough to put Wisconsin away? It will, especially if they can keep the Badgers out of the end zone here. Wisconsin in desperate need of a touchdown right now. So there's only 3 minutes left to play, so time is not on their side at the moment. Even if they score here, I imagine they will go for that onside kick. But, we'll see what ends up happening here. As here we are, first and goal. They go with a play action, actually. Throws it right inside. And Dan Robinson does score, but Old Dominion is able to run out the rest of the clock. And the Monarchs pull the upset on Wisconsin. Big win for the custom coaches out there. But this game that we have on screen now was actually a top 25 matchup this time last year. Actually, it's the first top 25 matchup that we had in year number 1, now that I think about it. But, these two programs have fallen off a little bit, and they have a lot to prove in year number 2. So we'll see how this game goes as Tennessee is playing their very first game of the season. Notre Dame coming off a very convincing win against Alabama. We'll see if they can carry that here in their second game of the season. Down by 10 already, but they are in a position to make this a one-possession game with less than 2 minutes left to play in the first half as their tailback, Landon Hogan, will make it just a 3-point game after the extra point, but Tennessee still has 2 minutes left to play in the first half. Not to mention, they have all their timeouts as well, so no rush here at all for the Volunteers. We'll see how they approach this drive as they got a first down there. And then next play after that, just throwing it out to the right-hand side. Nobody there to cover the guy in the flats. And Willard Perry is able to will himself to a first down there as well. Helps temporarily stop the clock. Is now Landrum drops back, looks over to the right-hand side, throws a dime to Andrew Adams. That time he gets out of bounds. And look at this, Tennessee still hasn't used any of their timeouts. They are playing this drive pretty well, and look at this. They're going to be inside the 10-yard line, out of bounds yet again, so they still don't have to use their timeouts. Looks like they are really trying to be the last team to have the ball, but that won't be necessary as Jason Page boxes out his defender. Touchdown, Tennessee. And the Volunteers open up a 13-point lead going into the final quarter of action. Dropping back, Notre Dame looking for a response, and Sean Hawkins gets open late and gives the Fighting Irish a first down. As here we are going inside the 5-yard line. Barrett Cooper getting carry this time around. And Notre Dame puts it within just one score, but they got to keep Tennessee out of the end zone, though. Landrum drops back, looks over in the middle of the field, makes the catch for Andrew Adams, and that is a first down, critical first down as well. And here we go now to Landrum again, throwing over the middle. That's almost a first down as well. Jason Page, who's having a wonderful day, 6 catches, 68 yards, but not a first down, though. 2nd and inches, but they will score yet again, as that is Drew Brown that scores for the Volunteers. And you love to see what Tennessee has been doing. They will go for the 2-point conversion, but 2-point conversion doesn't go too well. Actually, it's a fumble, but on 2-point conversions, no other offensive player can move the ball forward, so the play was ruled dead after that. Just a 12-point game, so if you really think about it, Notre Dame doesn't even have to go for 2-point conversions from here on out, but even if they can get into the end zone here, they will need to stop on defense. Not sure if this is going to help them all that much, but Barrett Cooper does get them a little bit closer. But that clock is still going to be running, and time is not on their side right now. 2:10 left to play in the game. Going to be a run over to the right-hand side. Pitches it out to the last minute, and Sean Hawkins is going to find his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Notre Dame, but it is not going to be enough as Tennessee wins their first game of the year, winning by 5. Meanwhile, we have a couple more games getting ready to kick off. It is Florida State and Southern Miss, but more notably, we're going to be watching number 8 Nebraska later on. Florida State coming off of a big win against the Wyoming Cowboys in the opening week of the season. But Southern Miss taking it to them early, up 7-0, as Florida State looks to find their rhythm as well, as Jimmy Wright's going to pick up the catch and get the first down, make it a 1st and goal situation there for the Seminoles. As now, 1st and goal for the Seminoles is going to be a screen over to the right-hand side, breaks a tackle, and Kendrick Washington gets him inside the 5-yard line as the Seminoles look to tie, which they will, as Ryan Jones finds the end zone, and we got ourselves a tie ball game after 1 quarter. But this one has been a struggle on offense. Neither team finding a rhythm. We'll see if that changes here in this final minute of the first half, as Kendrick Washington able to find a nice seam down the field. Gain of 25 for Florida State. And then on the following play, how about this throw right here? Big time throw over the middle of the field. Jimmy Wright breaks the top off the defense. And Florida State takes a lead into the final quarter of action. And after that big touchdown throw, Florida State is just going to take over. And really the home crowd getting behind them right now, as Florida State went for 2, and they just went for the extra point and it didn't work. But still up by 19 though. Still a pretty significant margin to make up here in the 4th quarter. But they're just using that run game, and that run game is absolutely lethal, as Ryan Jones finds the end zone yet again for the Seminoles. So slow start for Florida State, but they will end up winning pretty convincingly. 36-7 ends up being your final score as they get to 2-0. But now we check in on the number 8 team in the nation, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, going to be taking on a tough opponent here in the Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado, a team that probably should have been ranked. They were a 10-win team last season. They just beat Virginia, by the way, 38-35. So Colorado more than capable of putting a lot of points up on the scoreboard at any given time. But how about this catch right here? But it's dropped. What? Wow, they called that a fumble on the field. I actually wasn't sure if he actually established control or not. Wow, that's crazy. I think Colorado might have been screwed a little bit by the officials. Could have been the benefit of the hometown call for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, but Nebraska turns around, gets a long touchdown, down 14-0 now, but Roosevelt Jenkins will get into the end zone before the end of the quarter, but missing the extra point though, so it's 14-6 instead of 14-7. So instead of Colorado going for an extra point to tie, they actually will have to go for the 2-point conversion if they want to tie this game up, but that does not faze them at all as Drew Sanders finds a soft spot in the zone coverage, and hey, just like that, we got ourselves a tied ball game. After Nebraska initially went up 14-0, Colorado answers back with 14 unanswered points. So we might have ourselves a ball game after all. Remember, Colorado, they beat Nebraska last season. So that's something to really watch over as Nebraska looking to try to get to the edge. Look, nice run to the outside, and Tim Hayden almost punches it in. He's going to fall just a few yards shy there, though, as they'll actually go to the passing game as they find Brian Moore all by himself. They were not expecting that pass at all, as Nebraska looks to get another 2 touchdowns consecutively as they find Eddie Robinson in the end zone. And just like that, Nebraska with 14 unanswered points themselves. Can Colorado answer the punch? And it looks like they are poised to start answering that punch back. It's a 1st and goal inside the 5-yard line. Punching it in. It's a touchdown for Colorado. But there's a penalty. And it's an offsides. It's an offsides on Nebraska. And even with that, Colorado still scores. Imagine that. So, good game here. We had a lot of points scored here in the first half. Looks like it's poised to certainly continue as Lester Jones throws his 3rd touchdown pass of the ball game. They're only down by 4. Could go in either direction as CJ McIntyre drops back. He's going to throw a dime out to the right-hand side. How about the body control there by Jeremy Jackson? Really part of that 10 toes down movement. It sets up a 1st and goal opportunity as they'll go back to that ground game. Oh, he needs one more block, and he doesn't completely get it. Still punches it into the end zone by himself as Tim Hayden. He's been on fire today. 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. But CJ McIntyre, well, he's going to get a touchdown of his own as Colorado down by 11. Less than 3 minutes left to play. How can Colorado answer back? They've made things interesting, but they have not held the lead this entire game, though. It doesn't matter how long you lead. It's a matter who leads at 000s. As now, looking over to the right-hand side, finds Drew Sanders for the end zone score. And Lester Jones' 4th touchdown pass is going to make it a 5-point game. And they'll also keep the offense on the field. This will make it just a field goal that they would need, and they're going to get it. Johnny Black punches it in for the Buffaloes. We'll see if they go for the 2-point conversion, or the onside kick. They actually don't. They trust their defense, and defense actually does pretty well. So Colorado got a chance to win, and how about Lester Jones getting it done all day on the ground and comes out with a 42-yard run. They're already in field goal range, but they're going no huddle, though. They want more than a field goal. They want to beat Nebraska in regulation. But on the next play, Lester Jones is intercepted. Oh, that hurts. That really hurts. But Nebraska, they're going to win a close one to remain undefeated. So a lot of games really starting to kick off now as we go around the country, and including teams that maybe we don't get as much of a chance to see over the course of the season. Eastern Carolina going across the country to take on the Arizona Wildcats. Arizona really a team that we didn't get to watch much, if at all, in year number 1. And you could say the same for Eastern Carolina, but hey, it's a nationally televised game, so you love to see that. But not a lot of scoring until we get to the final moments of the first half, as Jason Davidson finally breaks the virginity of not getting into the end zone. That's the first touchdown of the entire game, and also the first score for Eastern Carolina. But Eastern Carolina, they are a team that likes to run that air raid offense, so if there's any team out there that could move the ball down the field, Eastern Carolina is certainly capable of doing that against lesser teams. And listen, Arizona is not the most talented team on the planet, but they're eating my words right now, as, oh my, Bo Wallace gets intercepted, but Arizona couldn't do anything with it, so Eastern Carolina has the ball back, and Bo Wallace answered. Wow, one-handed catch. Oh man, touchdown Eastern Carolina, as Adam Holmes, hey, he's doing a favor for that quarterback, I'll tell you what. And after that moment, we really start to see that scoring starting to pick up here in the second half. Both teams feeling the intensity of the moment here in this ball game. 3rd and 6. Wallace facing pressure, and he puts the ball on the ground, and we could have a big boy score, but the offensive lineman has something else to say about that. Arizona really doing a good job, by the way, forcing some turnovers. So now we're here in the fourth quarter now. Still only a 1-possession game here, as Bo Wallace has been going to town. He has nearly 300 yards passing in this game, but hasn't really turned into points just yet. They've really stalled out in Arizona territory more than just a couple of occasions today. It really has been a tough day for the Eastern Carolina offense, but they can get it right here on this 4th down. They could tie this game up with 7:30 left to play, and sure enough, they do. Ryan Holman gets his 2nd score of the day, and it's now a tied ball game. 17 apiece here as Arizona looks to answer back, throws the ball over the middle to the running back, John Bernard. And John Bernard gets him inside the 15-yard line for a fresh set of downs, as John Bernard will also take the carry up the middle of the field, but gets hurt. He's going to be a little bit shaken up after that particular run, so they're going to have to go deeper into the depth chart if they want to utilize that running game any further. But that will not be necessary, as Jason Davidson, he's going to score in the back of the end zone. And Arizona could put the finishing touches on this game, depending on what they do on this drive down the sideline. And it's Ryan Little, who was all by himself, wide butt naked open. Ryan Little now has over 100 yards receiving on the day, as it looks like this run could seal the deal. Big time run, almost gets back up. I think he did for a second. Kenan Rollins forcing Eastern Carolina now to take some time out. This could really seal the deal here, as they don't turn the ball over, and Isaiah Hefner not only accomplishes that, but is going to score. And Arizona puts the Pirates away, as Wildcats do end up winning 31-17 in what was an exciting second half. Meanwhile, we'll check in on Boise State. We saw them lose last week in the Texas Kickoff Classic to the Texas Longhorns in what was an absolute shootout. Well, they'll be taking on Kansas State. Will be playing their very first game of the entire season. And in this game, Boise State was coming out. They were playing some good, hard-nosed football. I don't know, by the way, how Justin Miller made this catch. The coverage here was absolutely insane. But, that will not faze the Broncos, as the Broncos pretty thoroughly actually took care of business in this ball game. Although things do get pretty interesting in the fourth quarter, as Chad McWow, he's going to throw over to the left-hand side. Makes a couple of defenders miss, and look at that. Kansas State's going to mess around. And maybe they could get some garbage time points here. Keep the flame of hope alive, as Kansas State will score there. But I imagine they will try to go for the 2-point conversion so that the field goal could later get put into play, as quarterback drops back, throws over the middle, but Jason Kent's going to break it up. And that's as close as Kansas State gets, as Boise State was in control the entire time as they win their first game of the year. Meanwhile, Ohio State, who really struggled offensively in week number 1. They are taking on an FCS team here, as they are the rarities of having an FCS team on national television. So we'll see how Ohio State can favor. It looks like Ohio State, this was a confidence game that they needed, since it felt like ever since the end of last season, we've really seen Ohio State struggle on the offensive side of the ball, right? We know what they are capable of on the defensive side. They have one of the best defenses in the country, but offensively, they've certainly been inconsistent since the second half of last season. So hopefully this can be a springboard kind of game for Ohio State, even though they are ranked in the top 15. Maybe this is a moment that Ohio State can get their act together a little bit. And sure enough, Ohio State, and I don't think anybody is going to be surprised by this at all, Ohio State is going to blow out this FCS West squad. They put up 50 points. They put up 52 points on the FCS team. It's a confidence boost that Ohio State's going to need if they're going to, really make some noise this season. And speaking of noise, we got Alabama taking on Arkansas State right here. And this was a game that could have been a top 25 matchup if both teams would have handled their business. Alabama lost in the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic to Notre Dame, while Arkansas lost to an FCS team. So, say what you want about Alabama, but Arkansas State, they are even more down bad. You cannot be losing to FCS teams as a top 25 team in the nation. So, unfortunately, not a top 25 matchup in this one, but Alabama, man, they came to play early and often in this game. They really did not mess around and find out here, as Alabama already up 7-0, as Curtis West is going to call his own number, and he'll punch it back into the end zone after that. So Alabama with a big lead already, and they could score again here, still in the first quarter, by the way. This has all been happening in the first quarter. Remember that as you're watching through highlights of this particular game, this is all in just the first quarter. Alabama, needless to say, they've been dominating Arkansas State a little bit. Even on the road, this crowd has been so quiet ever since Alabama's jumped to kind of lead that they've jumped out to. You could literally hear a squirrel fart in the stadium if you wanted to do that, if that's what tickles your pickle. But Alabama's going to score again. It's going to be 21-0 in favor of the Crimson Tide. So you would think at this point it does not get much worse for Arkansas State after giving 21 points up in the first quarter. Well, you're going to be surprised, but it actually does get a little bit worse, as Quentin Wake just running with some serious authority right now. I mean, it's pretty pedestrian what Alabama's doing. It's not a complex concept, but Alabama's just dominating in the trenches right now. As they listen, if it's not broke, why try to fix it, right? They're going to run the ball again. Alabama's going to score yet again, and they're going to march off to a 41-point win against a team that was ranked in the top 25 to start the season. So now we go into some studio updates throughout the country. And how about this one as a shocker? Louisiana Tech, they pulled the upset on the Arkansas Razorbacks 28-12. And Jones was just on fire today, 150 yards, a couple of touchdowns. As Louisiana Tech, great way to get their first win of the season, but it's not the only studio update that we got throughout the course of this episode. We got Utah State, the Aggies, they end up winning 36-35. They actually went for a 2-point conversion. They had some balls, but I mean, those cojones really paid off. Speaking of not having cojones, though, San Diego State losing to UTEP on the road. That'll likely kick San Diego State from the ranks of the top 25. So you hate to see that, especially losing to UTEP. UTEP, not the most well-known and best programs in the country, to put it nicely. But man, how about this for a shocker? Minnesota, ranked number 10 in the country. Not only do they lose to Tulane, they get absolutely clobbered by the Green Wave of Tulane. Oh my goodness, Tulane, they should be ranked after this. So we got a couple more games left here in this episode, as we got Hawaii taking on West Virginia, as well as the number 2 team in action in USC. Hawaii coming off of a pretty big win last week. They beat a ranked Oklahoma squad. So we'll see if Hawaii can keep it up as they are on the road yet again. They're looking for a 2-0 start, which would match the number of wins that Hawaii did get in the previous season. Really been a great hire by grabbing the custom coach George Gentry, who did take over as offensive coordinator and one of your custom coaches. But last week it was the Hawaii offense that was a real highlight. How about the defense making some plays, keeping West Virginia out of the end zone? And while Hawaii was still figuring out how to get into the end zone to begin with, they had to settle for a bunch of field goals in this game. Defense for Hawaii is still keeping them in it, but West Virginia, they might be starting to find some cracks in that Hawaii defensive scheme of theirs, as Hawaii is still up by 11 in spite of all of that. But they do have a chance to run out the rest of his clock. First and goal, less than a minute left. They're going to run into the end zone real fast, as Joe Perry is going to punch it in for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. And Hawaii is going to get to 2-0. They will indeed match their wins record from last year. They went 2-10. They already matched what they did last year. But the last game that we got is the USC Trojans. They will be playing host to the Bobcats of Texas State. USC looking to make a positive deep run yet again into the college football playoff. They got big aspirations this upcoming season. But man, this team has been playing some extremely hard football right in this moment, as USC, with 3 minutes left to play, they could really expand this lead further, but Texas State gets a big play in the end zone, and the Bobcats with a chance to respond. They don't score anything after that, but hey, that was a big play nonetheless. Keeps Texas State in the game, and then this run on the outside, this gives Texas State the tie of the game against the number 2 team in the entire country. We'll see if they can punch it in on the 2-point conversion, as they'll try to throw over the middle, but is stuffed at the goal line. Dominic Taylor did not have anywhere to go, but they will get a field goal later on. So they actually do get a lead against the number 2 team in the nation. But after that, USC starts to try again. They started to try, but because after that first quarter, it seems like they were just sleepwalking through this game. No, USC, you can lose to a Texas States of the world if you're not careful. And it looks like the Trojans, they are starting to get that message a little bit. They will retake the lead with a couple minutes left here in the third quarter. They will also go for the 2-point conversion as well, but Ben Scott cannot run it in himself. Trying to call his own number did not work. So this fourth quarter could get very interesting, as Texas State can pull it back to a one-possession game yet again. The Bobcats, they are not going away. They are not going anywhere anytime soon, as USC only up by 5. And listen, they just need to get some big runs in, try to force Texas State to use their timeouts. But Nick Richards goes out of bounds there, so Bobcats are able to save their timeouts. That's a big deal. But on the very next play, Richards refusing to go down. He's going to run the ball in the end zone, and that should do it with 42 seconds left. But make no mistake, Texas State, they played an admirable game in this one, as USC, they still win by 12 in spite of all of that. But speaking of those game updates that maybe we don't see on a nationally televised scale, let's go ahead and check some other notable games that did also happen. Starting with Penn State, they do get to 2-0, but was not very convincing, as they only beat this FCS West squad 20-7. As for the Army Black Knights, though, they'll also get to 2-0, as they took on yet another FCS team, this time from the southeastern part of the country, as the Army Black Knights win 35-7. Almost had the shutout, but Southeast did score on the last second. Meanwhile, North Carolina does get itself back into the top 25. They get their first win of the season, beating that FCS West squad 38-17. Syracuse, however, had a major scare against FCS East, almost losing, but the Orange do prevail, winning 31-25. Speaking of FBS versus FCS matchups, Cal took on a team from the Midwestern part of the country, and Cal wins 41-24, and that allows them to remain in the top 5 in the country. But speaking of that top 5 and specifically the number 1 team in the country, the Ole Miss Rebels win 45-13, showing why they are the number 1 team in college football. As for the Mississippi State Rebels, they went on the road to take on the Tigers of Memphis, and Mississippi State does win 20-14, but most notably, Mississippi State's second win of the season is going to get them into the top 25. They're now going to be ranked number 23 in the entire country. But you want to talk about blowouts? We certainly had a blowout here as Colorado State, they continue to surprise some folks early on in the season. They destroy the Cincinnati Bearcats 52-20, and the Rams are soldiering on, starting off at a pleasant 2-0 to start the year. As for Utah, thanks to their 2-0 start after beating FCS Midwest 41-10, the Utes will also be into the top 25 for the very first time this season, as the Utes do win by 31 points. They're now number 22 in the country. However, for the Northwestern Wildcats, they get their first win of the season in a major way, taking it out on the Louisville Cardinals. My word, the Wildcats win 48-14, getting their first win of the year in a massive way. Louisville still searching for their first win, however. As for Michigan State, it was a little bit of a surprise to see them in the top 25 after their loss to Temple last week, but they will bounce back with a solid win against FCS Southeast, winning by 31 points in order to get their first win of the year. Missouri will also notch their first win of the year by taking down another FCS school 35-3 as the Tigers get their first win of the year. Tulsa actually opened up the season here in week number 2 as well, and they open up against FCS Midwest, where they do end up winning 45-10 in this one. How about the Virginia Tech Hokies continuing to play strong, coming off a nice win against Oklahoma State? They do what they're supposed to do in their game against FCS West, also winning by a big margin. 45-10 ends up being your final score. The Hokies start the year 2-0. But how about this for a shocker? Baylor loses to an FCS team after nearly upsetting the number 1 team in the country last week. Baylor loses 24-14, so Baylor not only off to an 0-2 start, but also they're no longer ranked in the top 25 as well, and deservingly so. However, the Pittsburgh Panthers will not have that same issue as they take down the FCS West football team 41-7, and the Panthers are now off to a 2-0 start and ranked in the top 15 as well. Showing it how it's done, though, is UCLA, who was the national runners-up last year. They get to 2-0 after a 49-7 win over FBS Generic. So needless to say, the top 25 had some changes happen. Not necessarily at the top, but there was certainly some changes. Ole Miss and UCLA are in the same spot, but UCLA does move up 2 spots to number 3, and so does the University of California as well. However, Oregon, thanks to their big win against the Wolverines, they get to number 5 in the country, and this Oregon team, really makes it the 4th Pac-12 team here that's ranked in the top 5. It's been a great start for the conference. 5 of the top 6 reside in the Pac-12 actually. They were on bye this week, but they will take on UCLA in the next episode, so that'll be a fun game to watch over. Nebraska moves up 1. Miami moves down 5 spots. Georgia is still somehow not ahead of them, so I'm wondering what happened to Georgia. Ohio State moves up 2. Michigan moves down 6. Georgia at number 11. I thought they were ranked a little bit higher than that, but they do move up 4 spots. They're at number 11 in the country. They're off to a pretty good start there as well. We do have a little bit of stability in the middle, but then towards the back end of the top 25, though, we got Pittsburgh up 3 spots. Army moves up 4 spots. Iowa, who was on bye this week, they move up 4 spots to number 17 in the country. Then Minnesota, who they lost big to Tulane. They're still going to hang around in the top 25, but ranked number 18 in the country. BYU gets to move up 5 spots, even though they were on bye. And then last few spots is going to be held by Tulane, who enters the top 25 after a big win against Minnesota. Michigan State, who moves up 4. Utah, who gets into the top 25, as does the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And then we have Arkansas at 24, and North Carolina, who does get into the top 25. They were here to start the season, and now they are officially back in the top 25 as well. So guys, that is going to wrap things up here for this episode of the NCSL, starting here in week number 2. This was an exciting episode. We saw a lot of chaos in this episode, and maybe this means that, dare I say it, we have that 2007 vibes, one of the most chaotic college football seasons that we've ever gotten a chance to go ahead and enjoy. Do we see something similar to that here in the NCSL? You'll have to continue to watch throughout this series, as next episode we will continue through the regular season. Here in year number 2 of the NCSL, we will have week number 3 action, but hope you guys did enjoy this episode. If you did, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. This is John J Gaming on the mic signing off, but hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.